Cara, rost monfa. Cara, rost aqui. Helmet case. Helmet घेऊन बस ना. ओके हेल्मेट रूल असतात. Uh, good good morning. I hope I'm audible to you. Is my screen visible to you? Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you very much. So last time we had discussed about a linked list and stacks, okay? And now it's time to put that particular learning into solving the questions, okay? So as usual, I'll be giving you some part of the code and you will have to complete the remaining part of the code. You'll be given 5 minutes to complete the exercise. In case you are not, I'll be posting the solutions, okay? As soon as the lecture is over, this document will be uploaded on the chalkpad as well as the recording. So what is the first question says is, given an array list ARR of size n containing the integer, the task is to insert the elements of a given array list to a linked list and return it. So point number one, you have been given an array list of the size n, okay? The task is to insert this particular elements of the array list to a linked list, okay? So in case you have entered it as 1, 2, 3, 4, your output should be 1, 2, 3, 4. But kindly pay attention over here. This is nothing but an array list. What you're outputting is nothing but a linked list. Nothing but a linked list. Okay. So as the question indicates, take an array list, add some elements into this array list, and this array list should be now inserted into a linked list, and you should return that particular linked list. So as usual, most of the coding samples start with the test cases. So that is for the test cases. Okay. So for each and every test case, you accept a size of n for the array list. You add the contents, you run the particular loop till the end to add the contents in this particular array list. Okay. Your task is to write a function called as insertion. Okay. So what is the insertion function going to do? It is going to take a parameter as an array list. That particular function is supposed to add the content one by one into the linked list, and it is going to return a linked list. Hence, my left-hand side before the equal to is you're declaring a linked list of the type integer. You're declaring a linked list of the type integer. Okay. And then what I do over here is I display the contents of the linked list by using a for loop. For int I colon ll. So what I'm doing over here, I'm displaying the contents of the linked list. So this particular part I'm going to give you. We do not need a IO. Your task is to complete the program by writing the insertion function. By writing the insertion function. Any doubts you have in this particular examples? If not, start writing the code for this particular function called as insertion. So pay attention. So as I told you, your insertion should be taking the array list as a array list as a parameter. As the name suggested over here, we are passing an array list. So this is an array list over here. Okay. And what was told to you is all the elements of an array list should be added to the linked list over here. Okay. So what I did was I simply say return new linked list, created an anonymous linked list. Okay. And in the bracket, I pass the parameter as ARR. So what happened was I returned the linked list, okay, with ARR as a parameter. So this created a linked list with the contents of an array that was then assigned to this particular LL because that was on the left hand side of the function invocation. And then I use a for loop to display the contents. So kindly run the code after pasting the code, and in case you have any queries, kindly paste it in the chat window. If you have any queries, you can type it in the chat window. Return new linked list. Simple. Create an anonymous linked list. What should be the content? The content should be coming from the array list. So this particular anonymous linked list gets assigned to this particular LL. And then I display the contents. No. Even if you declare a linked list and then add the contents, it will be the same. It will be the same. I just wrote a shortest code possible. I just wrote a shortest code possible. Yes, great. Yes. Yes, Vishal, your solution is right. You simply relied on the for loop. I relied on something called as using the creating an anonymous linked list and sending it. You created a linked list called as answer and use the for loop to add the contents. But only one student has pasted the solution. Okay. Since I'm not getting any queries regarding any of this question, let's hit the second example. Given a linked list LL that contains an element, the task is to iterate to the given linked list and print its element. Okay. Now this should be very easy because what it is saying is you have been given the linked list. Your task is to display the contents of the linked list. Okay. Your task is simply to print the contents of the linked list. The first part of the code will be as usual the same. T is a test case. For each and every test case, okay, what you have to do, you have to accept the N. Then what you do, you use a for loop to add the contents to that particular linked list. And then you'll be writing a function called as linked list traversal to traverse the contents of the linked list. So your job is to write the function. Okay. It shouldn't be returning anything because the return type is void. The content should be displayed in that particular function only. Traversal means iterating the particular linked list. Like how we use the add method to add the content to the linked list. Similarly, traversal means display the contents of the linked list one by one. Yes, any questions? Kindly do keep on posting it. Public static void, linked list integer A, integer. Yes, that was a very important point. For index A, yes, we shall bang on target, right? Good. So, this is one of the possible solutions. What I did was, parameter this particular function is receiving is a linked list of the type integer. Okay. Then I associated the iterator with this particular linked list, and I simply use a hash next and the next combination to display the contents of it. So whatever you have learned to display the contents of the array list, the same code will be used for displaying the contents of the linked list. So our entire code will be, this is one of the possible solution. Okay, you can use a for each loop to display the contents. Any doubt? Okay. Now, since now you know that how to use an iterator to display the contents of the linked list, I want certain changes to be made in this particular code. I want to display it in the reverse order. Okay, and kindly display the contents in the reverse order. Whatever is the order, it should be from the reverse. And you know some mechanism we have done it with the array list to display it in the reverse order. So kindly use the same mechanism for displaying the contents of the linked list in the reverse order. You have been given 2 to 3 minutes to go back to your array list, check the notes, and then write the code for this particular linked list traversal in the reverse order. Yes, Himanshu, that's right. Is there some kind of an iterator available using which I can display the contents? Okay. So now what you do is write the code in that particular function, run it, check it, and once you are done, kindly type yes, it is done. Okay. Okay. Got some interesting answers. Kindly make the changes in the function, run it. Once it is over, type yes, so that I can continue with the next example. I guess you must have completed it. Thank you very much. Let's continue. You are given an array of size n. You need to push the elements of the array into a stack and then print them while popping. The previous example, if you look, have you done the stacks in the previous examples? Yes, I guess we have done the stacks. So let's apply this particular knowledge to write a code in which we need to push the elements of the array into a stack and then print them while popping. There are two operations associated with it. One is push, another is pop, third is a P. This example is saying that you need to use push and pop to display the contents of that particular stack. So let's try to understand this particular example. As usual, we'll have the test case, then the size, then the contents, and then we have to display it. So what is push going to do? Push is going to add the contents one by one. So push 1, then push 2, then push 3, then push 4, then push 5. So where is this top of the stack? Top of the stack is at 5. So when I use a pop operation, how it will work? 5. Then the top of the stack will be 4. Then 4 will be the top of the stack. When I use a pop, then where will be the top of the stack? 3. When I use a pop, top of the stack becomes 2, and so on. Clear? So what I will do is, I will first declare number of test cases, declare an array list, okay, accept the size, and using a for loop, add the contents in this particular array list. And then what we have to do? We have to use a push operation. Okay, so I declared the function as underscore push. Is this a valid convention? Yes, I can use a underscore to name the function. Underscore push arr comma n. That means we need to write a function called as push that takes two parameters. First parameter is an array list. Second parameter is n, that is the size of the array list. What it is going to return? It is going to return a stack. It is going to return a stack. Okay. The stack will be of the generic type integer. Then you are supposed to write a function called as pop. You're supposed to write a function called as pop, which should be displaying these contents of this particular stack. Okay, so two things you have to do. First, write a function called as push, underscore push is the name of the function, which will take parameter as arr and n. What is this function going to do? It is going to return a stack. So that will be stored in my stack. Then what you are going to do? You are going to write a user-defined function called as pop, which is going to take a parameter called as my stack. Okay, and you are supposed to display the contents. We'll give you some time to think about push and pop operation. Kindly pay attention. This ARR is an array list. So this is declared as a user defined. This N is a user defined. This my S is a user defined. Underscore push is a user defined function. Underscore pop is a user defined function. I hope I have clarified it. The purpose of the push function is to add the contents to a stack. The purpose of the pop is to remove the topmost element of the stack. All of you, in the last class, have I discussed the push and pop and the peek function? In the last class, then why it is so difficult for you to relate to it? When I say that content should be handled using a stack, it should be purely handled using a stack. All of you, please pay attention. This is an example which is checking whether you can code it in the stack or not. The contents are dumped in the array list. This array list has been given to a function called as push. Your job is to write the contents of an array list into the stack. How? You figure it out. Pop. Now, once we have added, kindly pay attention. When I add 1, this becomes a top of the stack. When I add 2, this becomes a top. When I add 3, this is the top. When I add 4, this is the top. When I add 5, this is the top. Point number 1. Clear? So I explained two things. One is push, one other is a top of the stack. Now, when I say pop, what do you mean by pop? Pop will always remain the topmost element. Which is the topmost element? 5. So your stack now becomes 4, 3, 2, 1. So when I use a pop, what will happen? It will remove the topmost element and hence your stack becomes 3, 2, 1. Clear? The job of the peak is different. Peak will only peak at the topmost element, which is 5, and it won't change the stack. It will be still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I expected from you was something like this. In case of push, I expected you to declare a stack, and then I wanted you to write a for loop to push the contents in the stack using this particular get method. This is one of the way of doing it. Okay. And then what you should do, you should return a stack. Why? Because I am returning this particular data, which is a stack, which will be used over here, So now my stack has got the contents 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my top of the stack is 5. Now what should pop operation do? Pop is always going to remove the topmost element. So if my stack is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, always remember your top of the stack is always pointing to the topmost element, which is 5. Is the size not equal to 0? Yes, s dot pop. So what will be displayed? 5. Now your stack is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is the top of the stack? 4. So now that should be displayed. Once a pop is executed, what will be your stack? 1, 2, 3. What is the top of the stack? 3. Displayed. Once a pop is executed, what will be the topmost element? The contents of the stack will be 1 and 2. Is it not equal to 0? Yes. Pop will be now firing the second element. What is remaining? 1, and so on. This will be continuously executed as long as the stack is not equal to 5. Just one moment, I'm getting a call. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can use that method. For example, if I use a peak method, then peak is always going to show me the topmost element. So if I use a peak, then it is going to display me the 5. Okay. But my stack won't be 1, 2, 3, 4. It will be still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas a pop means remove. display the topmost element, and your stack will be 1, 2, 3, 4. That means 5 will be removed from the stack. Is it clear? Yeah. See, the data structure treatment. So the data structure treatment will be the same in all the subject, whether it is C++, whether it is Java, whether it is Python. Clear? So when we talk about the Python, Python is very, very strong in data analytics, machine learning, and if you are using the web development, then they have got two excellent frameworks, that is Flask and another is Django. If you take the Java into consideration, your web basically will be using a Java, then it will be using Hibernate, it will be using a middle tier called as Spring, and that way it is going to be used. So Java is quite deeply penetrated in the ecosystem for the web, where you'll be using Spring and Hibernate. And if you're talking about the web development, then we have something called as a React, Angular. These are the front-end framework, and the back-end will be the Node.js. So coming back to the push and pop operation, is it clear to you? Okay. Now what you are going to do? You're going to write one more function called as @peak, which is going to display, forget writing the function. Just try to display the topmost element of this particular stack. Yeah, that's what I said. If you're using the web, then you'll be using the Flask or the Django. Now what you're supposed to do is, before you write the pop function, kindly try to display the contents of this particular stack, the topmost element of the stack, using something called as a peak. Give me that line of code which is going to display the topmost. My stack name is my stack. Yes, st.peak will be displaying the content. Good. Yes, got it. Thank you very much. Given a stack of integers and the Q query, the task is to perform the operation on the stack according to the following queries. Okay. What will I should do? I should add an element X on the stack. What should R do? Should remove the topmost element of the stack. What should H do? It should print the topmost element. Printing the topmost element, that means it is nothing but a peak. This is nothing but a pop. This is nothing but a push. F5, check if the element Y is present in the stack or not. Check whether the element Y is present in the stack or not. Print S if present, else no. So that means what it is asking us, that it should insert the element. That means we want to push the element X. R means we want to perform the pop operation. H means we need to perform the peak operation. And then check if the element Y is present or not. That means it should check whether it is present or not. So the operations are I, R, H, and F. So if Q is a 6, okay, let's assume the operation is I2. What should I2 do? It should push 2. I4, it should push 4. I3, it should push 3. I5, it should push 5. So my stack is going to have 2, 4, 3, 5. What will H do? H is going to print 5. Is it going to remove that element? Absolutely no. Okay. Then F8. So what should F8 do? F8 should check whether this particular element is there or not. Is there or not? Is it there? No, it is not there. Hence your output will be, see, you said push 2, push 4, push 3, push 5, and H. H is going to print the topmost element. So when you are going to print the topmost element, what it should be? It should be 5. And you're trying to check whether the 8 is there in this particular stack or not. Do we have the 8 in the stack? No. So your output will be 5 and no. Is this clear to you? Is the test case clear to you? Any explanation required for this test case? Let's take another test case. Q4, I3, I4, R and F3. What does I3 indicate? Push. I4, push. What does R indicate? R indicates that you want to remove the topmost element. So when you remove the topmost element, what is 4? What is 4? 4 will be removed from this particular stack. Your stack contains 3. Your stack contains 3. Then F3, what does F3 indicate? What does F3 indicate? Kindly check whether the 3 is there on the stack or not. Do we have a 3 in the stack? Yes, we have it. So output will be yes. Output will be yes. Kindly pay attention. The videos as well as this particular documents, as soon as the lecture is over, we upload it. Okay, if you're not checking it, then it is your problem. So whatever other documents I'm explaining, they're always uploaded. So kindly go through it and check it. I hope, Ankit, I have explained to you. All the documents which we basically teach, it is uploaded. So this is for your reference. And let me give you the main. First, let me explain this. So what we have done, we have declared a stack. What does the queue indicate over here? The number of queries. As long as it is not equal to 0, what we should do? We should accept the character. Okay, create an object of this particular geeks. What is a geeks? Geeks is this particular class which has got this various functions. Then what I do? If the choice which you are entering is I, then what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to accept this particular integer, okay, which is x, pass it as a parameter to the insert function. So we'll ask, what is obj? Obj is an object of which particular class? It is an object of the geeks class. Okay. Secondly, what is the insert function? You are supposed to write this insert function over here. Okay. This insert should be pushing the element in this particular stack. Then ch equal to r. So what should r do? R should remove this particular element from this particular stack. Okay. So obj remove st. So what is st in this case? Tell me. St is nothing but the stack object. So what I am going to do? I am going to make a call to the remove. So let's go to the remove function. This is the remove function. And in this remove, I am going to use a pop function. Then h. What does h indicate in this case? H means print the topmost element. H means print the topmost element. So what we need to do? We need to use int x is equal to st.p. Okay. And that x should be displayed over here. That x should be displayed over here. That is a head of the stack. That is a head of the stack or the top of the stack. We call it as. Now, if choice equal to f, then what we do? We accept an integer from the user. Okay. And I'm using a find function. It's a user defined function find. Okay. What it is supposed to return? It is supposed to return a boolean. Boolean means either true or false. In this case, what it is going to do? It is going to take stack as well as x. Okay. So if that particular element is there, then what it should do? It should give me true. Else it should give me false. So let me give you both the codes so that you get an idea of how the coding has been done. Okay. Take your time and run it because it's quite a comprehensive code and the big one. Take your time. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to mute myself. Himanshu, I think the message was quite passed by the two faculties, right? Nandini ma'am and Parul ma'am had mailed because I had some meetings, so I couldn't. If you have any query, you kindly type it. Once my class is over, you should be going through this particular example, going through the documentation and find the alternate method to solve it. That's the correct way of doing it.
Head of a stack or the top of the stack is receiving stack, and we use a predefined method called as peek. What should peek do? Should display the topmost element of the stack. Will it remove any element from the stack? No. Any doubt? Yes, use it and check whether it is working or not. Okay. I hope you must have gone through it. So we have gone through the linked list, array list, stack. The next data structures we have is queue. Okay. A queue can be visualized as first in, first out. First in, first out. The operations are normally called as NQ and DQ. NQ and DQ. So if we have the queue with 5 elements, this is the first element, second, third, fourth, and fifth. P4 stands for first in, first out. First in, first out. First in, first out. So which is the first over here? This is the first element. Yes or no? Then this is the second. Then this is the third. Then this is the fourth. Then this is the fifth. So this is the topmost element over here. So the first one will be removed. Whereas in case of stack, it is last in, first out. It is last in, first out. This is the first element, second, third, fourth, fifth. So in case of stack, the topmost element will be removed. In case of queue, what will happen? The first element which is inserted, that's why I written front over here. This is the front of the queue. That front element will be removed. So if you look at the diagram, we have something called as a iterable. Collection extends the iterable. List extends the collection. Okay, there is a linked list. There is a linked list which is implementing the list as well as DQ over here. We haven't seen a DQ. We'll be seeing the DQ in the advanced data structures. Your linked list is actually implementing the DQ. The DQ is extending the queue, and we have the queue over here. We have the queue over here. So what we are learning is we are learning this particular data structure called as queue. Okay. So before you start coding any of the data structure, you have to go through the diagram and understand where it is actually present. For example, if you look over here, the concrete implementation is a linked list class. Yes or no? Right? So over here, what are these lists? Collection, iterable, queue, and DQ. Those are nothing but the interface. Those are nothing but the interface. Clear? So once you know the diagram, you will realize the importance of this particular line. Queue string waiting queue is equal to new linked list string. What does it mean? My left hand side is a interface and my right hand side is an concrete class called as linked list. Have you understood it? Have you understood this particular line? Why on the left hand side I have a queue? Why on the right hand side I have a linked list? What was taught to you in the Java is we cannot create an object of the interface. We cannot create object of iterable. We cannot create an object of collection. We cannot create object of list, queue, and DQ. Only object we can create is a linked list. So you have got two options. Linked list L is equal to new linked list. So it is going to be a purely an object of the linked list. In case I want to create a reference of the list that should be pointing to linked list, then I will say linked list L is equal to linked list. Similarly, if I want to work with the queue, my left hand side should be the queue. So my left hand side should be the queue, my right hand side should be the linked list. I cannot have the queue equal to queue for a very simple reason. You cannot create an object of the queue. Hence, I have to say queue string any name equal to new linked list. Okay. And these are some of the names added into this particular queue. So adding operation, as I taught you, in case of queue, universally is called as NQ, removing universally is called as DQ. But since you are learning the collections, in case of collection, for all the collection, if you need to add the element, it is add. So they have not changed it, it is going to be the same. So we have added the elements over here. So when I say SOP waiting queue, it is going to display that particular queue. Okay. When I say remove, which should be the element which should be removed, think and answer whether it will be the Rajiv or whether it will be the Steven. When I say remove, which element will be removed? Q is a first in, first out. So which element should be removed? Yes, great. In case of stack, which element should be removed? Understood. Great. So after this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to display the contents of this particular waiting queue. Okay. Now there is something called as a remove. There is something called as a poll. Okay. So what's the difference between poll and remove? That poll method is similar to the remove, except that it returns a null if the queue is empty. It returns a null if the queue is empty. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to run this code exactly as it is. Point number one. Point number two, kindly try to remove all the elements. Kindly try to remove all the elements. When all the elements have been removed, try to use this particular remove method and tell me whether it will work without exception or it is going to give me an exception. Okay, what is that exception? You run it. That means continuously keep on giving this. String name is equal to waiting queue dot remove. So add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you run this remove method 6 times, what should happen? It should give you an exception. What is that exception? You tell me. Okay. Next time, instead of remove, try to give the poll command. Try to give the poll command and check whether it gives an exception or not. In case there is no topmost element, kindly pay attention. Again, I'm telling you, there is no concept of a topmost element that is available in stack. In case of queue, it is front and rear. It is front and rear. Whichever was the first element in the queue, that should be exiting the queue. Is it clear? Yes. Great. So which is the exception you are getting? No such element exception you are getting. So when you continuously, for example, in case I use a remove, Rajiv will be removed. Then if I use remove, Chris will be there. So once you remove all the elements and then try to again make a call to the remove, it is going to give me no such element exception. Now what you do is, instead of remove, try using a poll and tell me what is the observation. It displays the empty queue. Good. Oh, yes, Nikhil, good. So what is the next example illustrate? Yes, great, Abhishek. So what is the next example illustrating? Check if the queue is empty. Find the size of the queue. Search for the element. Get the element at the front of the queue without removing it. Okay, so this is interesting. Get the element at the front of the queue without removing it. So what has been given to you? You have been given the queue by saying queue string waiting queue is equal to new linked list. We are adding this 4 element and then we are displaying the contents of it. Okay. Now it's the time to check or use the documentation. Okay. Now, first question it is asking is peek inside the queue. Okay, so is it possible to have the look at the topmost element? Sorry, use the wrong word. It is possible to use the front element of the queue. Okay, go through the documentation and tell me. Second is check if the queue is empty. Third is find the size of the queue. And fourth is search the element in a queue. Fifth is get the element in the front of the queue without removing it. So what you should be doing is you should be using the documentation to find the answer for this 4 options. Check if the queue is empty, find the size of the queue, search an element, get the element at the front of the queue. Okay. So I want you to write the remaining code. I want you to write the remaining code which will accomplish the following tasks. Shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. See, the queue has been given to you and A, B, C, D are the contents of the queues. You have been given the task to check the documentation and come up the commands for this 4 operation. Check if the queue is empty. Find the size of the queue. Search for element in a queue. Get the element at the front of the queue without removing it. Yes, I have been getting some answers. I have been going through the chat window. I'm just waiting for a minute or so. Okay. So most of the students have got it right. If you want to check whether the queue is empty or not, use empty method. To find the size of the queue, we use the size. To check whether the particular element is there or not, what we do, I can use a contains function, the predefined contains function. I will simply say string name is equal to E is not there. Okay, so it should come and display waiting queue does not contain the name. In case I want to basically check, get the element in the front of the queue without removing it using the, then use a function called as element. String first person in the waiting queue is equal to waiting queue dot element. Use this particular method to display the top of the element, just like how we have the peak, how we have the peak in the stack. Similarly, we have something called as an element. Get the element at the front of the queue without removing it. Okay. So we have something called as a string first in the waiting queue is equal to waiting queue dot element. Get the element in the front of the queue without removing it. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to use a peek function and check whether it is working or not. Okay. I also want you to go and check whether the element works or not. Now, after that, I want you to go to the documentation and tell me, are this one and the same or not? Are this one and the same or not? Or is there any difference in them? This is for the first two elements. This is for checking the contents. And interestingly, the last part, what I want you to check is check whether the peak user knows such does gives an exception when there are no elements there in this particular queue. Just check it. Noted, yes. Yes. No such element. Well, the peak does not. Good. 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 Okay, the next example will teach you how to iterate a particular queue. You must have already guessed it, how to use it. Simple. Declare an iterator, point it to the object of the queue, rather the reference of the queue. Use a has next and the next method. Use the has next and the next method. Or you simply use a for each loop. All of you have completed it? Okay, great. So these two documents, good, wonderful. So these two documents will be uploaded on the chalkpad along with the lecture recordings. Clear? Tomorrow we are going to start with comparable and comparator interface along with the sets, along with the set. Clear? That will be the end of the session. Thank you very much. If you have any query, I'll wait for a minute. Okay, that will be the end of the session. Thank you very much.